Please help me welcome Edgardo Cambon.
Thank you.
Welcome, my friend. Long time no see. It's good to see you
Very
again.
good to see you again, participating musically, artistically, and in this interview, and with this great audience today here to show a little bit of Afro-Cuban percussion, and for you to give you a little bit of awareness of what you're going to be seeing on Friday and Saturday at the concert.
That's right. And you brought your pianist with you, Israel?
Israel Tannenbaum, amazing pianist from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
He's going to be accompanying me, Sam.
Yeah, we're lucky to have you.
I'm lucky to be alive and be here with you.
You know, I pulled up your bio on the internet just because, you know, I didn't know a lot about you until I read through that. It's very interesting. And I saw that you got your start in music as a choir boy. You sang for in the choir for the Catholic Church there and where you grew up in Uruguay. Right?
I did. I was 7 years old. In fact, I was showing Israel today a photo of my first performance singing lead vocals for that choir, because I was singing for the choir, and then, you know, they started doing auditions for the solo sections. So I sang a couple of tangos when I was 7 or 8 years old with one of those old Shure microphones, the one with the little lines like that, you know, you see now people using as a prop, you know, with a reggaeton singer with one of those old microphones. Well, I had one of those when I started, and it was the real thing, and it wasn't trying to be a prop. It was the real microphone.
But not in the church. You weren't singing tangos in the...
I was.
Really?
I was. My church was a part of the Catholic school that I was going to, so the choir played a wide range of music from the time, and the accompaniment was a piano player who was one of the priests who was the leader of the choir. So that was the first time that I had to, you know, understand a little bit about pitch and notes and stuff like that, but all by ear. There was nothing but ear training.
So I think of tangos, you know, being like part of the music of Argentina, but Uruguay is same.
Well, yeah, don't forget that Uruguayans claim that Carlos Gardel was born in Uruguay, so there's a lot of controversy of that, but you're correct. You know, Argentina claims the power in the tango music, and rightly so, but Uruguay has a lot of tango.
Yeah.
And, as well as our own rhythm called candombe, which is an Afro-Uruguayan rhythm that has the clave, the pulse of the clave in it, which is one of the few rhythms in that part of South America that actually has that pulse related to the Cuban music. So when I started playing Afro-Cuban music, you know, that was already in my ear. It wasn't too difficult for me to grasp it.
Yeah, and so you left Uruguay and went
Argentina.
Argentina.
From Uruguay to Buenos Aires in 1974. Way before these guys even thought of being conceived in this world. And then...
so was there some political unrest that was going on, and your family had to get out of Uruguay?
Yeah, the funny thing is that you said there was. I wish I could say there was. There still is political unrest now. They are going through elections. No. But at that time, it was really a rude awakening as a teenager, because we were, both countries, Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, were all going under political dictatorship. So when I left Uruguay, theoretically more than 4 people in one corner were supposed to get a permit, because it was a coup d'etat, so that was considered a political meeting or an illegal gathering of people. If you had a quinceañera or a birthday of a 15-year daughter or your son, then you had to go and ask for permission to the police station to have a party in your house. Mm-hmm. So but in the midst of all that, I don't want to sound negative, in the midst of all that, there was always a lot of music, and art is always the so-called escape from where you can kind of tap into it and get into your own cocoon. So my cocoon was first the guitar, as you know, I was doing some singing also, but the guitar at early teenager years, and then I was introduced to percussion. So that was my valve of escape, to go through the music.
And then another upheaval. I think Sweden, right? You moved to
I
Sweden.
moved from Argentina to Sweden first, where my brother was a political refugee there, and then I went down to Amsterdam, and I lived in Amsterdam for about 4 years. And in 1986, I came to this country first via Milwaukee to LA, San Francisco, and then now I'm a resident of Oakland, California.
Yeah,
and I've been here. I've started my band here. It's been about 33 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, the dean of salsa music. And,
Thank you.
Latin
Thank you. I don't know
music
if
in
I
the Bay
deserve
Area.
that.
Yeah, very much. What is the scene like? I mean, comparatively, I would imagine New York is kind of an epicenter of the music. But what do you think? Salsa. But San Francisco, pretty happening place.
It's interesting you ask me that question. I mean, in terms of origin, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and New York. I would say Colombia, Venezuela. A lot of music in there. Then it became an international affair. At this moment, I would say that San Francisco and the Bay Area has more live events actually than New York City. And I can corroborate that by having visited recently New York. A lot of clubs in New York, have been gravitating towards reggaeton, hip hop, house, a little bit of salsa, Latin, bachata. And don't get me wrong, there is still, an amazing population of Latinos who love and dance salsa there. But the proof is that a lot of musicians in New York City of renowned name are moving to the Bay Area to continue, or LA to continue, working in this
Miami,
field.
I imagine, another.
Miami has a lot too, a lot of Cuban influence there, of course.
Yeah.
I
I know I've gone to a couple of the clubs in San Francisco, and it's just really fun to see all the people out, different age groups, and just dancing. It feels almost like from the 1950s sometimes, like an old cotillion kind of dance with people dancing with each other and the live bands and all of that. It really is a very fun kind of atmosphere.
Absolutely. This is what keeps me alive and going. It's very nice to get into a club to perform and see already 50 to 70 to 100 people already with a dance instructor and potentially a DJ, etc. However, I do have to say that a little bit of the connection with the bands have changed a little bit. In the old, I've been in New York several times, and you used to go to a club in New York City, and the first 10, 15 lines were people standing, just checking the band and cheering the band, and the dancers were a little bit more in the back. So, now with some phenomena that have happened in the last 2 decades, which is like salsa congresses, the dance instructors to a younger generation, there is somewhat of a little bit of a disconnection between the dance and the music they're enjoying, because a lot of times they're just hearing it through speakers. There is a lot of social dances where they don't hire bands. Therefore, the younger generations tend to have a little bit of a disconnection with what's going on stage. And it's not their fault, it's just that they need to be trained to understand that amazing music comes, even if it's in a CD, it comes from actual people who played it.
Right.
And I think that's a phenomenon of all arts, everything is downloadable, everything is digital, everything is readily available, and,
So you studied in Cuba for a while. You traveled there
I did,
several times. And so what did you find different about the music there than what you had experienced before?
Well, Cuba is a very, very, very special place. And, I cannot talk about all the other places where this music is enjoyed and played. But in Cuba, music is a part of the heart of the people. You're waiting for a bus, and there is a saxophone player. You take a look at there, there's somebody else carrying a guitar. Teenagers are playing the music or dancing the music. You're walking downtown in Havana Vieja, old Havana, and it's music coming out of the window, music coming out of this other window. Music is a part of the culture. I've been there 7 times. I played there a couple of times with my band, and so I consider my sort of my second home, after my third home. After, I would say USA, Uruguay, Cuba. That would be my order. Also, don't forget that the root rhythms of salsa music, some of the ones that I'm going to be, demonstrating today, are rooted in Afro-Cuban music. So, That's where the seed was planted by way of course, major influence of Africa through slavery, and Spain, the influence of Africa and Spain over the years, and the development of all that. And the other thing that Cuba has is that it's an island, but in Puerto Rico, given the fact that you may have the financial means to, you can leave Puerto Rico, but Cubans cannot easily leave the island. So that creates a melting pot for people who want to interact and create, and they're always a little bit on the avant-garde to rhythmically and harmonically, and creating a lot of these great new grooves that are now being recorded and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big fan of the island of Cuba and the musicians in Cuba. The conservatories in Cuba are serious. You need to audition to get in. You need to study hard to get out, and not everybody qualifies as a professional musician. Just add water and it's instant gratification. So you have to really do that.
Yeah. When was the last time you were there?
The last time I was there was in 2006, way too long.
Yeah.
But some of my mentors from Cuba, they play in bands that visit the Bay Area, so I've been lucky to have some of those.
Well, at that time, you couldn't fly directly into Cuba, right? How did you get there? Did you go to Mexico and then?
I would normally go through Cancun, get on a camel. No, just kidding. You guys are too serious, man. Come on, relax. Don't do it. Okay. No, you jump on a plane, Aero Cubana or Aero Mexicana, and but you don't need necessarily to do that. My first trip was an investigation trip through the Public Library of Congress. I asked for a permit, and I did all that because I didn't want to go, on the sort of like underground. It's not illegal to go to Mexico and jump to plane and go to Cuba, but in general, in Cuba, what they do is instead of stamping you the passport, if they see that you're coming from the United States, they give you the visa in an external paper that is stapled to the passport, and then on your way out, they just staple it out, and when you arrive to whatever your destination is in USA, you can say to the customs that you were in Cancun, and that the Cuban cigars and the rum is because you found them on the beach or something like that. You mentioned that, and I want to thank President Obama for actually opening up the relationship with Cuba and opening up the interaction with Cuba, and because that was very, very, very important. Unfortunately, it's not the case anymore. But there is no reason why a small little island 90 miles from Miami need to be under oppression of any sanctions for anything. Yeah. There is really no reason for that.
Yeah. I saw that you studied religion while you were there as well.
Well, yeah, this music is very much related with the Afro-Cuban religion of Santeria, and in the early 90s, which is an African religion that was imported to the Caribbean and very present in Miami and pretty much everywhere in the world right now. Different versions of the same religion went to Brazil and took different connotations. It's a religion coming from the West Africa, the area from the Yoruba people, the area now known as Nigeria, and it's very, very popular. And religions. Can somebody say that religions are popular? What do you think is more popular right now? Should I read the Torah or the Bible? No, it's not about popularity. It's about belief. On the 90s, I was going through some personal changes. I sobered up about 33 years ago, and I've been sober since then. The interesting thing is I'm saying all this in an interview, but it's okay. Being sober is not a bad thing. And I discovered that I had to kind of find my spiritual path in, being so related and in depth with the Afro-Cuban drumming. I started investigating more, and some of my mentors in Cuba, they started saying to me, hey, you should check this out because the drum doesn't call anybody, you have to figure out why is it that you're so attracted to this. And I started investigating more, and some of my mentors were priests of the Santeria religion, and they still are. And so I got initiated in 1991, and now I'm kind of like what I call a Santero light, kind of like, like zero Coke Zero. You know what I'm saying? It's like my belief is very, very strong, and my happiness comes from that. But I don't necessarily need to be every time worshiping, and it's very important for me. Yeah. Thanks for asking me that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah. Well, you're going to show us some of these instruments today, right? And
I am.
And play for us a little bit.
I am going to do it.
I'm looking forward
so
to that.
maybe I can start with something right now.
Yeah,
Or
I'll
you-
move out of the way, and then you can you can do your thing.
Ibarago, moyuba. Ibarago, agomo yubara. Omo yeko, yiko ibarago, agomo yubara. Ele guachulona. Ibarago, moyuba. Ibarago, agomo yubara. Omo yeko, yiko ibarago, agomo yubara. Ichoncho abe odara, bobo nileyo. Ichoncho abe odara, bobo nileyo. Papa teni ichoncho abe.
Good. Allá cerca del mar está el callejón de mi recuerdo. Y en el patio de la casa donde vivo yo se oyen sonar los tambores que son primores. Se está divirtiendo la gente y a mí que me gusta el ambiente me voy para allá. Se está divirtiendo la gente y a mí que me gusta el ambiente me voy para allá. Despacito. How did that get in there? I don't know. You know, my brain works that way. You don't have to clap, but it will make me feel a lot better if you. There you go. I started with an instrument called wataka, and this is a hoe blade used for plantation. So the wataka now is a commercial instrument. This is not commercial. I found the cheapest one that I could. I don't even know where I found it, but it's in my possession right now. Usually it's hit with a metal rod, and I was playing a 6/8 bell pattern. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I started with that because that pattern is the grandparent of what we know now as the clave, which is a rhythm that I'm just going to demonstrate to you in a little bit when I pick up the clave instrument. So this is grandpa. And the chants that I were singing for you were chants in Yoruba language.
and that came with the Santeria religion to the island of Cuba and many other islands in the Caribbean, with the, of course, the diaspora, the forceful importation, if we can use that term. English is my second language, okay? And of individuals from one continent to the other one for forced labor. What a concept, right? We haven't totally escaped from that in society. Now we do different kinds of forceful labor. But that's a whole other topic. Let's talk about music. Thanks to that, all this culture was forcefully imported to where we live now. And thanks to that, we have jazz, and we have all this music, and all these rhythms, and all these patterns that we play. I'm not an ethnomusicologist, so I don't want to go into very deep waters, but I started with that just to sort of get rooted myself and also present to you something that it was very minimalistic, because some of those individuals, they had to find instruments where the instruments were none or they were illegal. They couldn't have instruments. So a lot of the instruments that we use were either in hiding or instruments that they become an instrument at night, and in the day it was whatever you use for work in the field, okay? So then I moved to another instrument called shekere. Can you say shekere? Shekere. Okay, I shake it for you. Shekere. Shekere or agbe. The shekere is also a Yoruba instrument, and it's used in sets of 3 in many worshiping traditions in the island of Cuba now and all over the world. The shekere originally was made with a gourd. We're coming onto Halloween, right? So this doesn't grow in trees just like that, and you just crop it and you take it home. It's in the floor with a root. Cut the root, take all the seeds out. Allegedly, the seeds in here, when it's dry, is toxic. So you got to put a little mask, protect yourself. You can't breathe this, what is inside. On the outside, it was originally animal tripe and seeds or beads or cowrie shells from the ocean. This is a commercialized version of that with beads, very colorful beads. Comes from the same tradition, Yoruba tradition, and is used also for the same worshiping. Then I moved to the conga drums. The congas. Official name of this instrument is the tumbadoras. Can you say tumbadora? No. Wow, we have a lot. Raise up your hand if you speak Spanish. Ah, bueno, me hubieras dicho, entonces dijimos en español. Everybody else can understand, right? The lyrics are translated on the way out in the program. The tumbadoras, they come in 3 different sizes. The large drum, which actually is somewhere back in there, is the tumba, and it gives name to the instrument. Then there is a conga or middle drum, and there is the quinto or high-pitched drum. Usually 11 inches, 11 and 3/4, and 12 and a half, but makers have made this instrument in many different materials, fiberglass, plastic, airplane materials, etc. So they try to get creative with a very primitive instrument. Originally, the skins were tied up to other skins, and there were pegs on the side. By you hitting the pegs with a harder wood, you would tune this drum very poorly. So the tuning developed a lot when the mechanical tunings got added. Other types of tuning was nailing the conga hide. This is a cow hide, rubber wood from Thailand, and metal. That's all the material, and then the craftsmanship. The measurements of these instruments came from the island of Cuba, developed in the island of Cuba, and there is a lot of controversy on the origin of it. Some people think that it comes from the bembe drum, which is a drum that came from Africa. Some other people say that it comes from the yuca drum. And there were folklore instruments used in the island of Cuba, and then little by little, the drum got to this shape. As I was saying, that another method of tuning would be when the skin is wet, you pull it down and you nail it with tacks, just like the one you use in furniture or in shoes. And you stretch it as much as you can. Then when you apply heat to it, just with a little fire, the skin will pull from the edges and get high in pitch because it gets tension. This mechanism of tuning was incorporated from the regular American drum set, much later in the life of the instrument, probably mid-40s. I started playing a variety of rhythms, and then I went into a little rumba, and I sang in Spanish. Rumba, R-U-M-B-A, is a family of 3 rhythms from the island of Cuba. The main rhythms of rumba are Columbia, Yambu, and Guaguancó. You guys are making note of this, right? Because Mr. Steve Thompson is going to ask you every single term that I said today, and but for $10 I can send it to you. No, just kidding. Rumba. Rumba is allegedly, rumba and son are the 2 most important rhythms out of the island of Cuba, and they gave birth to everything that sort of like we know as far as what we call nowadays salsa. Salsa music is a big umbrella of rhythms, and the terminology got very famous in the 70s in New York City, and it expanded and exploded all over the world with that very beautiful decade of salsa music in New York City, with labels like Fania Records. This is way before digital music was distributed, and they were packing boxes and boxes of albums to Latin America and putting salsa music out in the market. It's very hard to pinpoint this. There is a lot of controversy between Cuba and Puerto Rico about the origin of the terminology. You know, the Cubans said, well, the rhythms you're playing are our rhythms, and the Puerto Ricans from New York, they said, well, we kind of push it a little further, right? Don't you think? Everybody knows salsa now. And then the Cubans will reply, but wait a minute, listen to this song. Échale salsita. And I'm imitating a very old album, right? Without the scratching. And that that chorus said, put sauce to it. Échale salsita. They were already using the terminology salsita to identify to this music. So who was the one who created the terminology? That's the controversy. I'd rather introduce you to it and have you do the research, because I don't want to be responsible for my own opinion is I share the opinion of the great and late Ernesto Tito Puente, who played this instrument very well, and I'm going to play for you a little bit of that, who said in an interview in New York City, a little controversial, he said, my name is Ernesto Tito Puente, I lead a band, I play music in New York City, I play Cuban rhythms. And he was, Puerto Rican, so, the Puerto Ricans were saying, they were not very happy about him giving credit as a master of this, but he was correct. The rhythms that he was playing and the instruments he was playing. With the flavor of New York. New York had a lot to add to it. New York has a lot to add to everything. It's a magnificent city. I'm gonna play a little bit more. And then I don't think I missed any of the instruments that I mentioned to you. Bass, upright bass that is, piano, and the timbal was the king on that type of music. The oldest rhythm known to this instrument is the danzón, and the danzón is the national anthem of Cuba, and that was that rhythm that I played for a second. This rhythm was tightly related with classical music, and it sounded like this, very soft. That rhythm is very important, and the paseo and the danzón rhythm. It was classical music related with the fans going Hello, what's your name? Are you in Facebook? Yeah, okay. The paseo was when they would, in the court, walk around and get to introduce to the single ladies and gentlemen in this. So everybody was waiting for the paseo, for the hookup. And you say, you know, on the paseo, I'm gonna get your name and what's going on. Classical music mixed with Cuban music. What a concept. That was the melting pot soon to happen. A genius mixed the danzón with a ritmo, and he called it ritmo nuevo, or new rhythm. Yes. Okay, so the Guido, can you say Guido? Guido. It's not your cousin Guido from New York City or anything like that. It's Guido with the R. Guido. Guido. And it sounds like this. Trying to get away from the microphone. Can you clap? Just that. I'm not trying to get you to participate, just to wake up. That's all. Now stay there, right? Then he'll play. When the timbal will go to the ritmo nuevo or cha-cha-cha, he'll go. Maestro. Just like we rehearsed it. I love that musical connection when it happens. Maracas. Also allegedly an instrument that wasn't necessarily brought by the slaves, but it was in the island, not necessarily to this fancy shape. Maracas. There are many, many different shapes of maracas and sizes and materials. This is made out of rawhide, and this is what's called a salsa maraca. I'm going to play a little bit for you. All right. The maracas. Clave, the clave is a pulse. This instrument is king in the music, in a lot of the music comes out of the island of Cuba. Why is that? Because it serves two functions. One is like a fun metronome, instead of sounding like this, right? You play the clave pulse, but also it's a key or an element that tells us in the rhythm session how do we play the rhythms, etc. And I'll explain to you why. Because this pulse is a 2-bar phrase, so we're going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Tension. relaxation. Why is relaxation? We got quarter notes and down beats. The tension is created by the syncopation. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2. Because Cubans love to complicate everything. They also have another clave called the rumba clave. And following American culture is larger and lower in pitch. So this is the Barry White of claves. Listen. Right? I'm playing the same pattern. This is the rumba clave or folklore clave. Usually in this instrument, they're going to make one more syncopation. Now on the first one we did 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. On this one we're going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So we play the end of 2 and the end of 4. Is anybody a musician here or everybody's a musician? You're a musician. Okay. So if you don't know what the end of 2 or the end of 4 is, don't worry about it. Think about the next elections. Here we go. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1. You want to do it with me? Because this is the big test. Now we have 2 syncopations. You did pretty good on the easy one, okay? And Mr. Steve right here is videotaping all this. 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Nice. Now, wait for me. Wait for me. Very nice. You got the rumba clave. Adding later on the trumpet first, and then harmonies in the trumpets, adding a second trumpet. That was in a way the development of what we know now as mambo music with a multiple orchestrated. So the bongo sounds like this.